Assalamu alaikum ya shabab. Today we're going to talk a bit about al-i'rab, and this is just going to be our first video in a series of videos on this complicated concept. And in this one, we're just going to sort of scratch the surface and give a preview of things to come. So, what is al-i'rab? Well, it's one of the most important things in the Arabic language, and it has to do with how we put case markings on the end of nouns. Right, and it's similar to how we do case marking for al-mudari'a verbs, which, if you remember, they can take one of three. Right, it's either al-marfu', al-mansub, and al-majzum. And doing i'rab for nouns is similar because it takes two of these, but adds a different one. Right, so. The two that the nouns can take, like the verbs, are al-marfu' and al-mansub. However, unlike doing case marking for al-mudari'a verbs, nouns take a new one. They don't take majzum. Instead, they take something called al-majroor, right? So they take these three, not majzum. And so, al-marfu' to review, just like with verbs, takes the dhamma. Mansub, just like with verbs, takes fatha. This should be a review for you by now. However, al-majroor, the new one for nouns, takes the kasra, unlike the fatha in al-mudari'a verbs. Okay. And we're gonna, later on, we're gonna delve in separate videos, we're gonna go into each one, okay? But that's just gonna be a little bit too much for this video, so this is just a preview of what's to come. So try not to get too overwhelmed by this. And so before we move on to each individual case marking in subsequent videos, we just wanna go over some main themes or pillars of al-i'rab. Some things that you just kind of want to keep in the back of your mind before moving on with this really complicated concept. So the first pillar is nouns and adjectives take case markings, and they have to agree with each other. So the adjective following the noun must take the same case marking. They must agree. The second pillar is that it's really important to keep in mind, or I guess to keep an eye out for definite and indefinite nouns, because this will sort of determine or play a part in determining what case a noun will take, right? And so if you remember, this is review, but there are basically three ways to determine if something will be definite, right? The first is if it has the definite article al preceding it. So like al-kalb, al-bayt, the house, or the dog, the house, etc. The second way to tell if a noun is definite is if it has a pronoun attached to it. So this right here says, it's kind of hard to see, but it says baytuha, or walidatuha. So if it was just bayt by itself, it would be indefinite. But since it says her bayt, that actually changes it to a definite noun. Same with her mother. And the third way to identify a definite noun is if it is in the first or actually a non-final word in an idafa. So again, this should be a review, but just keep this in the back of your mind as you move on. The third pillar is some small groups of nouns do not actually take the case marking, so they're sort of the exceptions, right? And we'll get into these more later, but they include independent pronouns and pronoun suffixes like huwa, kum, ka, ki, or nahnu, and demonstrative pronouns as well, hada and hadihi, as well as some others which we'll get into later. And also words that end with long vowels fall into this category. The fourth and final pillar that we should take into account before moving on is some nouns can only take two possible endings, right? So some are actually exempt. So these just include human plurals and dual endings. So that's just something really important to keep in mind before we move on. And I hope that serves as a good introduction to al-i'rab. Ma salama.